And we are back here on Open with what's exactly happening in the world of politics. We are joined now by our political expert, Michael Benjamin, who's the associate editorial page editor of the New York Post. He joins us here to talk about what's happening in both the local and the national headlines. And Mike, good to have you.
It's a pleasure. Happy
Hey,
holidays.
happy holidays to you. Let's go front and center right now. A lot of controversy here in New York City over a young lady who actually was trying to get some benefits for her child and ends up subsequently being arrested and separated from her child. We understand now that the NYPD, or I should say the District Attorney's Office, has decided not to press charges, but the NYPD says that they are vigorously investigating this. Let's bring people up to speed to where we are today.
What happened was last Friday, a young woman was at a Brooklyn HRA officer services office trying to get benefits for herself and her child. The place was overcrowded, and she had no choice but to sit on the floor. An HRA security guard apparently approached her and asked her to get up. But she said, well, I imagine why get up when you have no place to sit. Things probably got heated, and the HRA security guard wanted to call NYPD. And people have seen this viral video of police and HRA guards struggling with this woman to get her off the floor and trying to snatch her baby away from her as they try to get her to her feet. It became a viral sensation, an outrage for many New Yorkers. The young woman wound up being arrested, her child separated from her, and a nightmare for the mayor, NYPD, and Human Resources Administration for what many believe was a major overreaction to something that could have been moderated. In our editorial today in the Post, we didn't understand why the guard did not call a social worker to come over and try to negotiate and settle it peacefully without there having to be a reason to call the police and this awful incident to occur.
Yeah, and the other thing that you have to think about is let's talk about why she's sitting there. I mean, there is a glaring problem when it comes to, social services and help like that. The numbers of people who need help, and then you're in an overcrowded space.
Yes, yes, and yes, the young woman, Jasmine Headley, maybe she should not have been blocking in an area. The security guard should have found additional chairs for her and others who were forced to stand and wait for a long time, rather than getting into a heated argument, which then had the police show up, and then it turned into something. Of course, it wasn't tragic, but young woman wound up 4 days on Rikers Island over nonsense.
Yeah, and we know the charges are dropped and the babies and mother are set to be reunited. But talk to me about the public relations nightmare this does for New York City, particularly the mayor and the New York City Police Department. I was reading in one particular article that said that this is the time, the NYPD turned their backs on Bill de Blasio early on when he was elected mayor with all the shootings with the police officers in Brooklyn. The response now is the police officers should turn their backs on themselves, or the NYPD should turn their backs on themselves, given the fact that they were engaged in such
No, there's no doubt that what occurred was shameful, but also shameful was the mayor's lack of a response. I mean, he didn't necessarily have to condemn, everybody involved. At least he should have pointed out that something awful went on. He should have addressed it in the media. But fortunately, a number of other public elected officials addressed it, and even the police commissioner addressed it and said something went wrong. It's going to be investigated, and those who are responsible should be held accountable. I admire HRA's response. Security officers were, in a sense, suspended or reassigned until an investigation is completed. So they're taken off the line until something can be determined as to what went wrong, and coming up with new procedures. But for the NYPD, they're supposed to be doing finding ways of resolving conflict short of physical confrontation.
Right.
And apparently, not enough of their officers have been trained in that kind of effort when it comes to how do you calm persons down when things get heated, rather than having to get into a physical confrontation. And most troubling for everybody is the fact that they wrestled a woman's child away from her, a 1-year-old. I mean, I have a 5-month-old and a 3-year-old. I couldn't imagine anybody wrestling my children out of my arms. That's awful.
Right. And we know that this is the conversation that the President of the United States is going through in terms of, parents being separated from their children. But when you look at something so graphic as that, the NYPD's mantra is courtesy professionalism and respect. And when you look at a video that goes as viral as this, it could easily be said that courtesy, professionalism, and respect did not play out in the order of the day. I want to go to more of other news on the national front, talk about the president. Of course, we're talking about him now, and the word is that he needs to cool it on Twitter. And I know that this is something that's been said for a long period of time, that the president and his Twitter account is, it's actually better than Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I mean, you really can get the word out faster through Twitter, and the president utilizes that before he even has a press conference.
Yeah, he utilizes it, in a fashion that's always to defend himself or to promote himself. And our editorial, we talked that he needs to stop doing that, because especially when it surrounds the Russia investigation, Robert Mueller's investigation into what happened in the 2016 election, as the Russians apparently tried to influence the election. And it turns out also that one of his key advisors and employees, Michael Cohen, is pleading guilty today around 11 o'clock for a number of violations where he was hiding and lying to Congress about information about other things, especially about handling hush money for a number of women who had accused the president, Donald Trump at the time, of having had affairs with them, and in the effort to try to keep them quiet during the election so they wouldn't come up and possibly affect the outcome. So Cohen's pleading guilty to that. And in response, Trump started tweeting about Cohen and about Mueller, and all these things seem to add up to, like, he's trying to, in a sense, some people believe he's trying to obstruct justice, taking the emphasis off of the investigation, off of himself. And so, the Post advised him to stop doing that. Just let things play out.
Yeah.
He has other things to do. He has to deal with, national issues, our nation, dealing with China, dealing with other things that are happening nationally, rather than being preoccupied with the Mueller investigation. Let that play out and see what happens. Because from the editorial board's perspective, there's not much Mueller has that would really affect President Trump during his administration.
So from your perspective, we won't see anything until after the next election, possibly, when it comes to Mueller?
Well, Mueller's going to have to produce his report sometime this year, and it looks like he's getting closer to doing that, as a number of figures have been investigated and spoken to, have perjured themselves, have been providing information to the investigation, and we'll see where it goes. The key question is whatever is uncovered about the president's knowledge or participation in things, whether or not they are impeachable offenses. Well, we know that legally he cannot be tried in court while president. There are things that can happen, after he's out of office. And some, like the campaign finance violations of paying hush money and being aware of it, and that not being reported as a campaign contribution, could result in something. But we pointed out in our editorial that the same thing was that a Democratic candidate was once accused of that, and it turned out that that person was acquitted. That it wasn't, I believe it's Senator John Edwards. One of his donors had paid off his baby mama while he was running for the office of president for the nominations, and the feds argued that he was illegal contribution. But he argued it wasn't illegal contribution. He was just trying to prevent his wife from knowing what transpired. He wasn't trying to fool voters or prevent them from knowing. It was more about his wife not being aware.
Right.
And so that case fails. And in our view, any case against Trump would probably fail for similar reasons.
Well, Mike, that's why we bring you in to talk about these things. When we get back, hopefully next time, we'll talk a little bit more about Mark Meadows, the new chief of staff to President Trump, and a little controversy surrounding him. We don't have time to get into that now, but we'll have to get back to you to talk a little bit about that. But, Mike, thanks again for joining us.
Daren, thank you.
All right, buddy. All right, listen, taking a quick break. We've got more open. Stay with us. We're coming right back right after this.